Yeah, sure. So overnight we had gusty east-southeasterlies over the fire ground, which actually put pressure on the northern flank, which is what we expected. And we ended up having running fire out near Clinton Road and Ewing Road, where crews were actively defending about 4 or 5 properties in there. I'm pleased to say that there were no properties damaged or lost up there overnight, which is a great outcome. We also had crews up at the new fire up in Wilson Road, which is in the east part of Bullsbrook. That fire is contained and controlled, and I'd like to get a message out that that fire is suspicious. So if anyone does have any information on that fire or dashcam footage, could they please call Crime Stoppers. Crews have been working overnight to consolidate containment lines, and I'm glad to say that the fire is 90% tracked. I understand that there is a lot of frustration from the members of the community, particularly those who have lost properties, and we understand how much you want to get back in and see your properties. Within the fire area, there is 240 kilometres of roadways which have to be cleared, and we've done the majority of that work. And in fact, what we're trying to do now is we've reduced the warning areas, and we've also moved roadblocks back as much as possible to get people back into their homes if they're not in the actual fire area. But the issue is that the people within the fire area whose homes have been lost, there are quite a lot of hazards in there still. We have power lines down. We obviously have the issue of asbestos because of the area, and also we have issues with chemicals because it is a semi-rural area. So we just ask people to please be patient. We understand that you do want to get back in, but so far with this incident, there has been no loss of any human life, and we certainly don't want any human life to be lost during this critical phase.
Peter, when can residents sort of, I know it's how long is a piece of string question, but when can residents sort of anticipate to get back into their homes who haven't already?
Yeah, so what the plan is today is to really finalise the road walking and work with the local governments about the public health risks in relation to the asbestos particularly. So there'll be a tremendous amount of effort put into that this morning, with a lot of additional crews requested to make sure that that can be done as quickly as possible. And ultimately, there is a process around this that we must follow, and it is a tried and true process that has been developed over a number of years to ensure that the roadways are safe. But it's not just about roadways, it's about people's driveways. I went into the fire ground a couple of nights ago, and there was just significantly large trees were at risk of falling on people's driveways itself. So all of that taken into account is really critical to make sure that the area is safe before we allow people in. And when it is safe to do so, the restricted access permit unit is ready to go. They're ready to issue permits, and that will occur quite quickly once the incident controller gives the approval.
Where are the main areas of concern? Is it for going forward? Is it Shady Hills Estate and the Clefton Road area? Is that?
Yeah, certainly up in Shady Hills we've got fire activity along the rail reserve and the Avon River, and the large air tankers did 12 drops yesterday to consolidate the existing retardant lines that were there, and those have just been an absolute treat in terms of stopping the fire for us. So we're really grateful to have the additional large air tankers assisting us with that. Also around Clinton Road, there's a lot of work being done around Clinton and Ewing Road in relation to trying to tie in some edges to roadways with machinery. But like I said, even during the night in these fairly mild conditions, we actually had quite significant ember attack on properties and crews actively defending.
A lot of people watching at home, including obviously locals and residents, probably want to know just in general how it's going. How are the firefighters going? How's the fire? Was it a better day last night?
Yeah, it certainly was, I would say, a much better day last night, as reflected in our alerts and warnings that we're starting to reduce. East of 2J Road went to a watch and act. There are questions from the public, does that mean we can get back in? But the Watch and Act reflects the warning from the fire hazard, not from the other hazards that are in there as a result of the fire which started on Monday. Crews will continue to work during these favourable conditions that are expected over the next 5 days. So we are expecting reduced temperatures and higher relative humidity, which will mean that if a fire does start, it won't travel as far. But crews will be certainly vigilant, and certainly, again, I guess we just ask members of the public to please observe, any suspicious behaviour, particularly in the Bullsbrook Chidlow area, as we have had a number of suspicious fires.
What's your reaction to that?
How would you describe?
Yeah, so as a career firefighter of 25 years, I'm just astounded that anyone would light a fire at all, particularly in these sort of areas where we know we've just lost 81 houses. It's just deplorable. And just ask the members of the public to be very vigilant, and if they see any behaviour, to report it.
Are you looking forward to this rain?
Yeah, the rain will be a welcome relief on Saturday for sure. It will be great for the fire ground, but the issue is even though the rain comes through, it won't be enough to really assist in the long term. The fire will still have a lot of work in mopping up and containing the edges. So even though the rain will be very welcomed, there is still a lot of work to go, and it's a very, very challenging situation.
So with that suspicious fire at East Bullsbrook, do you know what the ignition point was there?
I'm not sure of the ignition point, but there was reports of a vehicle being seen in the area. So again, we just ask people if they have dash cam footage or any other CCTV, or if they've seen anything in the area, to report it to Crime Stoppers.
Is the number still 81, and could that still grow?
Yeah, the number is 81 at the moment, but what I will say is that our Urban Search and Rescue Rapid Damage Assessment teams are still going through the area. It is quite a difficult area to to assess, because there are long winding driveways, and sometimes something that looks like a fire break is actually a driveway into a property. So I would expect there is potential for that number to increase, but at the moment it is at 81.
How many of those homes have been accessed by the property owners, and how many still to go?
Yeah, so a number of the property owners, the majority of property owners have been notified, so there's been formal meetings. We are aware that a number of property owners have made their way into the fire ground. So in terms of DFES allowing people into the fire ground to return to their properties, that hasn't occurred yet. We're still waiting, like I said, for the restricted access permit process to be finalised. And that is completed after quite a detailed risk assessment, just to ensure that, like I said, we don't have any injuries or loss of human life in this phase of the incident.
And what's the process for that access? Because I think it's a system east to west, is it? So which areas will be accessed? Yeah,
the aim will be to start east of 2J Road, where a lot of the fire has been contained, and we haven't had any activity there for the last couple of days. And then we'll move progressively west of 2J Road through to O'Brien, where the last part of property damage was reported.
Do you know how much of the recovery has been done in terms of percentage? Like, have they looked at, 80% of homes so far that have been destroyed? Do you know how roughly far into it they are?
So in terms of the actual assessment, the majority of the assessment is complete. So
we... fair to say there's probably not that many more homes?
Yeah, I would suggest there won't be too many more homes that will be discovered, but the RDA team obviously has a process there, and they work close with the incident management team, because obviously we want to ensure that figure's correct, and we want to ensure that the notifications are done properly.
What assistance have you requested from Interstate?
There has been discussions with Interstate about firefighting resources, but nothing has been confirmed as yet. They're just discussions at this stage.
So have you made a request, or you did?
They're just in discussions about what would be available based on the current situation in terms of COVID.
What would you need? What extra support would you like?
Yeah, so look, I think that in terms of this fire, we're travelling very well in terms of resources, but the issue is that we will be reaching a period very soon of fatigue, and that's something that's managed at state level in terms of what those resources look like, remembering that we still have a long part of summer to go, and we need to make sure that all our career and volunteer crews are well rested.
So is the complicating factor that people need to quarantine because of the COVID situation?
Yeah, it's certainly part of the discussions in terms of requests from interstate about if there are quarantine requirements.
And at what point, I suppose, when you say we're getting to fatigue, at what point do you make a call, that you need those extra facilities?
Yeah, so it's basically a state decision. They look at that across the whole state. So it's not something that I would make as the incident controller. Obviously, Western Australia is a large state. We've got a lot of resources that we can call upon from all over the state, and we certainly have been doing that. We've got task forces coming from way down south, the Shire of Denmark and places like that, and those crews have been an amazing help. And we return the favour in Metro and go down there when they need it as well. So it's just one big team effort.
And maybe just lastly, how long do you think this is going to wait for?
Yeah, so I guess it'll depend on the rain and how that helps the situation. But I would think that the fire situation's probably got another week in it at least, where it will be fairly precarious. But the issue is now turning towards recovery. Recovery is certainly a big process. Western Power reported today they still have 800 customers who are without power, and the process of obviously restoring power could take 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a large part of the infrastructure, and what we're trying to do through this process is work with local governments to ensure that we can support the people in the affected areas as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, let's go, mate.
So it's just
Yep.